This is a book review for the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, effectively the inventor of Nike, which, believe it or not, before this book and before I saw him interviewed on the Charlie Rose show, I didn't know that. I got a bit of a sweet spot for autobiographies, particularly of business people. And this is by far the best autobiography that I have ever read. Why? Well, one thing is, I love the way that Phil paralleled some of the historical events that were happening. So setting the scene about what was happening politically, globally, and some of the trends. So he invented as I said, he was the founder of Nike, and he was a runner. And his coach, where he ran in the state of Oregon, was a bit of an inventor with shoes and kind of tweaked them and said, okay, try this out and try that out. So there was a whole trend of running, which Phil knew about firsthand as a runner. And then he found that there wasn't really much selection in the U.S. There was Adidas, or Adidas, as we say in Europe. But, they were that was the big player, and maybe Puma, but there was nothing domestic. So he thought, wow, there's a really big market here for customizing shoes. And then he thought, well, how do I make them, and how do I make them that they're not too expensive? Well, when I say historical events, in Japan, that was post-World War II, of course, the big manufacturing country. So you'd go to Japan to have your goods manufactured. So it talks about that. Then talks about later how with the rise of the yen and the exchange rate, he looked for cheaper places to produce the shoes, which was in China. But that whole historical context I thought was really fascinating, as well as the trend of running, and a big message in terms of starting your own business. He knew his product. He was a runner, so absolutely fascinating. The other thing about the story it was very personal. And you really felt some of the trials and tribulations that he went through personally, as well as he was developing and growing the company. So I really rate this book incredibly highly. The other thing that I liked is there's some really wise quotes. Here's just a few I've selected. He says, "Beating the competition is easy. Beating yourself is a never-ending commitment." He also says to study oneself is to forget oneself. And faith is defined in your heart. That's what he talks about. So really wise words. I highly recommend this book. I read it in one go on a transatlantic flight. I just couldn't put it down. Really inspiring and really touched a soft place in my heart.